What is up, Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome back into another DLF YouTube channel video. Today is going to be a really fun and cool video and breaking up some of the other stuff that we've been doing from the YouTube channel in terms of content and stuff between mock drafts, the divisional previews that dropped over the last week and a half as well. If you missed any of those other videos, please go and check those ones out too. There's a lot of fantastic and awesome content from myself and other DLF people as well, like Cal, Carp, the DLF podcast, Scott and Shane running their Manic and Chill. A lot of fantastic other content that's being dropped on the YouTube channel on a daily basis. But today is a pretty fun and different video in terms of content on the YouTube channel. And this one is going to be ways and ideas that you can spice up your Dynasty League, make them, a lot more fun than what they already are, kind of get away from just the stale, normal, Dynasty leagues and stuff like that, where you have some interaction in the off season for, the rookie draft, obviously, and then some waiver wire action, and then the whole in-season stuff, just other ways that you can, implement new cool ideas into your Dynasty leagues, whether or not you're starting a startup right now, or if you're 3, 4, 5, even more years into a Dynasty League right now, you can actually implement some of these right now into your Dynasty Leagues. So I got a few ideas here that I pulled from DLF people, asking them in our Slack channel, as well as other stuff from Reddit and online, as well as some other things that I've seen personally in other leagues as well, or have heard other people talk about. So with that all being said, let's get right into the video. So like I said at the top of the video, this is going to be a list of cool league changes or ideas that you can implement right now to kind of spice up your Dynasty League, add some flavor, some flair, and break away from kind of the monotony of just a normal, basic, standard Dynasty League. Add some more things to get going throughout the entire calendar year. Get some more, actual league manager interaction and stuff between people and all of that kind of thing. So this is going to be really fun here, and I have 9 different ideas, and actually the first one that we're going to go through has 4 different parts in it, but I got 9 total ideas that we can run through. So let's start with the first one here, and these are all going to be centered around the rookie draft. So this is all going to be centered around different ways that you can kind of change up the rookie draft, when it actually is, how it functions, stuff like that, in order to kind of change up just how the rookie draft works in general in your Dynasty League. So the first one here is to change the time in which the rookie draft is held from post-draft to pre-draft. So a lot of people might not be in favor of that. I get it. This is kind of a different format and stuff, and a different kind of view on how the NFL draft and the rookie draft in your Dynasty League works. But switching it up from post-draft to before the NFL draft allows for, a lot of different ways and different strategies for how you can approach your rookie draft, and also awards those people who put in the work, pre-draft, and not just waiting until they hear people's names and players' names being called on draft day. This awards people on the work that they put in pre-draft, how much they actually know about the class, or, are just kind of get lucky with some landing spots, some draft capital, all that other stuff. And it just adds also another additional flair or excitement to the actual NFL draft. It just adds a lot of cool additional excitement, maybe anxiety, to the actual NFL draft that some people may or may not actually find enjoyable. So that's the first part for this one, changing your rookie draft from post-draft to pre-NFL draft. The second one here is to break up when the rookie draft happens. And by that, I mean that I've actually seen leagues, and I've actually advised this recently in the comment section as well, as a way to gain more player value in the later rounds, in the 3rd and 4th round. What you can actually do is draft the first 2 rounds of your rookie draft in May or June, right after the NFL draft. Wait, and then draft your final 3rd and 4th rounds, or 5th round as well, in August during the preseason. So that is actually really cool, because it does a couple things. So first, it gives you a whole nother draft basically during the offseason. Everybody loves to draft, so it basically breaks up your one big 4 or 5 round rookie draft into 2 smaller drafts. Thereby, maybe, the time is basically the same, but psychologically you kind of view that as we have 2 separate drafts during the offseason, which can be really fun and really cool. Another thing that does is when you draft the first 2 rounds in May, you're now waiting for the third round to start in August, right? You can wait until, mid-August or late August, whenever redraft leagues are kind of in full go, and wait for some preseason news, some training camp news. And that 3.01 pick now all of a sudden becomes the most valuable or highest riser in terms of the rookies from training camp and preseason, right? So that 3.01 could be a very valuable pick to whoever actually has that pick. And then the next couple of top of the third rounders, all those players in those picks are a lot more valuable when we have more information than what they are just in May when you're taking actual dart throws on players, right? So imagine if you're sitting there and your first 2 rounds are already done in your rookie draft and Chuba Hubbard made it into the third round. So he's one of the players available in your August draft. All of a sudden, at the beginning of training camp or the first week of preseason in 2021, Christian McCaffrey goes down with an ACL injury, right? Knock on wood that actually happens. But what if that happens? All of a sudden, you're starting to trade very valuable pieces for that 3.01 to get Chuba Hubbard because he's going to be the starter for the Carolina Panthers, right? Like, that is a very, very valuable pick to actually have. And whoever has it could get a starting running back for 2021 or, flip that pick for something more valuable over the long run. So it just, it's a lot more fun whenever you can actually do that and break up your draft and have more value to those third and fourth round picks when you have more information down the road. But, drafting still those first and second rounds, those high name, big name players in the rookie draft still in May or June if you want to. So that one's a really, really fun one. And I have seen leagues that actually do that and have heard people talk about it, saying how fun it actually is to be able to have that breakup throughout the entire, summer for your off season. The third one here is another, it's a quick one, but it could just add some more flair to the rookie draft, is actually allowing the drafting of free agents in your dynasty league in your rookie draft, right? So now you're comparing guys who maybe you have Brashad Perriman, who's now one of potentially the 2 starting wide receivers for the Detroit Lions. He was sitting on your waiver wire, and instead of doing a whole waiver wire, FAAB acquisition or some sort of order in which players can claim Brashad Perriman off of the waiver wire, he is now thrown into your rookie draft, and you're now debating, maybe you get to that point where, man, do I want Terrace Marshall? Do I want, Brashad Perriman? You get down the road, do I want Kadarius Toney or Brashad Perriman? It starts adding some interesting flair whenever you start talking about these really high-named or potentially high-valued free agents that are in your dynasty league. And depending on how deep your league actually is, if it's only like a 20-22 man dynasty league, could be some pretty solid names on your waiver wire that could be included in your free agency rookie draft as well. And then, you just go on down there from there. So that's a really cool idea, in my opinion, on how that could work. And then just adding some additional flair to your rookie draft. Another one that could also work too is adding a supplemental draft. This one comes from John Hogue, is adding a supplemental draft and draft picks to your dynasty calendar in August. And then those supplemental draft picks are being actual draftable picks in your rookie draft. So the way that this works is there's a supplemental draft in August, which is basically just the accumulation of all the waiver wire players throughout the entire season and summer. And so there's no waiver wire runs or anything. There's no way to pick up players in the dynasty off season until the supplemental draft, when you actually draft those players in the end of August before the NFL season. And so to be able to get into that draft, you have to pick slots in your rookie draft to then draft in that supplemental draft. So you can get to, I can say the same thing. You get to the middle of your second round and you say, you know what? I don't want any of these players. I want the 1.01 in that supplemental draft in August, and just see what happens and comes back to me. So that's a pretty cool idea as well too. That one comes from John Hogue at SuperFlexDude on Twitter, from the DLF team. So John, I think that's a pretty cool and interesting idea, and I think that some people out there might want to implement that in their dynasty leagues. And then the final one here in terms of rookie drafts is to have lottery picks for non-playoff teams, and it's a way to determine non-playoff team order for your draft from the 101 maybe through like the 1.04 or 1.06, depending on how many teams are in your league. So if you're in a 12-team league, 6 teams make the playoffs. There are 6 teams that don't make the playoffs. You assign lottery picks to all of those guys, and you give obviously the most weight in the lottery to the worst team in the league, and then the second most weight to the second worst team in the league, and on and on and on, like how the NBA does it. This is actually what we do in my home Dynasty League as well. It's a 10-team league. 6 teams make the playoffs. So those 4 teams all get thrown into a lottery, and it adds some just additional excitement in terms of those teams and are their picks going to be, the 1.01 or the 1.04 or the 2 or 3. The teams that maybe traded for those picks earlier in the year or the season before, what are they going to get instead? So there's been times where, teams that have those lottery picks actually get higher picks than what they actually should have. And it's kind of been this running joke where up until this last year, actually, this one team has been kind of pretty bad over the past couple of years. And he's been the worst team record-wise and points-wise, but did not get the 1.01. He's gotten like the 102, the 103 in those rookie drafts. And it just kind of became this running gag that he'll never get the 1.01. And it actually took him trading for 3 lottery team first round picks for him to get the 1.01 this year as well. So it's just really funny. And that's within our friend group. So it's just funny to pick on him and tease him and stuff for not having the 1.01, even though his team isn't really that great. And it's just kind of an extra additional fun gag that we do every single year. But you could implement that in your dynasty leagues as well. And I understand if people are like, well, that doesn't really seem fair and whatnot. You could weight the lottery differently or just not do a lottery. These are all just cool ideas that you could implement if you like them. Now, I thought this was really interesting. I wasn't really sure how it would actually work, but I got this from Reddit, and I'm going to show it on the screen here, kind of more the explanation for how this actually works. But it's a Dynasty League Hall of Fame. And he explains it as the way that this works is basically after 5 years that a player has been on your dynasty roster and he actually retires in the NFL and was on your team for over 5 years, he then gets put up for the Dynasty League Hall of Fame. So then when they get up for the Dynasty Hall of Fame in this league, they go onto a ballot with all the other players that fit that criteria as well. And then owners actually vote on, who determines to get into that Hall of Fame. And it's actually, he said it's a really cool way to add, kind of exterior Dynasty League manager interaction. He said that owners actually have to give speeches for their players to enter the Hall of Fame. And then other managers will get pissed whenever, their player actually didn't make it into the Hall of Fame. So that's actually pretty cool. I think about how, if you have a really long, running Dynasty League, maybe your Dynasty League's been going since, the early 2010s or even before that, you can think about players that have been on your league for 4 or 5 years, on your dynasty team, guys like Antonio Gates, or, maybe like Rob Gronkowski is going to fit that here soon, or Drew Brees is going to fit that here soon. Guys like those who were really, really good fantasy players are now, could be your Dynasty Hall of Fame. That's a really cool and intriguing idea, I think, to be able to just have that kind of extracurricular dynasty aspect to your league, and then add, like you said, that extra interaction between managers where managers actually give speeches for their players, managers get pissed when their players don't get in. It's just a whole other aspect to their dynasty league and how it works. So I think it's really, really cool, and I wanted to share that as a cool idea that you could add that doesn't change your league at all. It's just more extracurricular stuff if you have a cool league and league mates and managers that are down for doing that. So that was a cool one in my mind. This third one here is to add a rivalry week. A lot of people mentioned about adding a rivalry week in terms of the last week in the season, or right before the bye weeks and stuff like that. Just adding and finding a really cool time during your fantasy in season to add a rivalry week and to, I can't really say that, rivalry week, and to basically just add some more competition and fun. Maybe you do this right before the fantasy season actually ends, right before the fantasy playoffs. So now we're talking about guys that potentially have some playoff implications and rivalries that go on between your managers and stuff like that. So that could be really, really fun to implement maybe after a year or two or more in your dynasty leagues when rivalries actually get going, and stuff. So it happens, and that you're in leagues that definitely have rivalries in them. So adding that week in there could be a really fun and spicy way to, if they're already going to play in season, why not just push them all and manually change them to be the final week of the season or something like that, or maybe the first week of the season, to really, really get a cool week going. So I like that idea. That was another idea that I saw there. This fourth idea that I have is actually adding bets on games, and you can do this, you can do this with real money if you wanted to, if you're that kind of league. But I also thought it would be cool to add, FAAB money and FAAB bets to your Dynasty league. If you're in a free agent blind bid budget type of a waiver wire, you could have like a $10 bet that you're going to win this week against, your other manager, or if you add some sort of like a spreads or lines based on how many points one team is favored over the other, right? Whenever you have the projected score, this team's favored to win over this other team by 7 points or something like that. You could bet that, yeah, I'm going to cover that spread, or I'm just going to win straight up, stuff like that. And you could put like a free agent FAAB money on that bet and have the other owner or another manager or something like that from another matchup bet on that on the opposite side against you. And then that money gets moved and transferred after the week actually ends and we know who wins. So that adds some more commissioner work into there in season. So that might not be for everybody, but it could be just a really, really cool way for that to kind of add some additional flair in season and add some, additional like manager interaction as well, starting like a message board or something like that, or if you have a group me or a Discord or anything that actually adds a type of interaction in chat and communication, but adding in the betting aspect would be really, really fun, especially if you could like bet against like other managers and matchups and stuff like that. Like you could go up to like your best friend in your home league and be like, yo, you're not covering the spread this week, you're gonna get demolished. I'm gonna bet like $5 FAAB that you're getting demolished and you're not covering that spread. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll take it. And then that could just be some cool, interesting ways to spice up your league, right? So I like that, to add FAAB betting, or if you're down for that life and you're about that life, putting actual money on it. But that adds in a whole other outside aspect of it that you could just use FAAB instead. So this next one here, and this is another idea that I actually did last year before I moved with my one of my best friends for our home league, that same league that I mentioned that we do lottery picks for. He and I actually started a video podcast, right? So we started in a video form. We talked about the league every single week. We broke down who beat who from the week prior. We broke down matchups upcoming and stuff. When it got to the time, we talked about teams that are looking to really get into the playoffs, teams that already locked playoffs, teams that are already out of the playoffs, and we kind of broke down and also did scenarios where if this team wins and that team loses, this team's in, or that team's out and stuff like that. So it just added a whole other thing, and we put it up on YouTube, but we only really got, just the views from just really our league mates and a couple of other of our friends and stuff, because it was kind of entertaining and fun, and we just trash talk on all of our other league mates and everything. So it was really, really cool and fun to be able to do that and add that element to our Dynasty league. So I would recommend, if there's anybody out there who wants to do that for your Dynasty league or think that would be cool, if you have the people and stuff that you can actually do that with, go ahead and do that. Like, that adds like a really, really cool and fun format and interaction with your Dynasty league. You can hop on a StreamYard or a Zoom call and record it and then post it. You could do just a podcast and record your audio and then post that. There's a lot of different ways now, especially with technology and from us all working from home or being in lockdown for the past year and stuff, and it's all opening up back now, but there's a lot of technology now, and us being at home a lot, where we could just sit down and do that for 20, 30, maybe an hour every single week, and just have that opportunity to trash talk some other players. And that's actually how the Fantasy Footballers podcast, if you know about the Fantasy Footballers, which I hope if you are watching this video, you know who the Fantasy Footballers are. But that's how their podcast, the Fantasy Footballers podcast, started. It started as a league podcast with Andy and Mike doing their own podcast for their home, redraft league. And that then developed into something obviously much, much bigger, and they're now doing that full time. But, they did that, and that's really, really cool. So I would definitely recommend, if you want to do that, go for it, do it, because it's really, really fun to be a part of it, but also fun, to watch it or listen to it and hear, your other league mates and stuff ragging on you, or you ragging on your other league mates and stuff. That is always really, really fun. This next one is adding a Empire pot, or just in general having more actual payouts. So the Empire pot, we'll focus on that one first, is where you have a pot of money that goes to a team that wins maybe in consecutive years, or has, the most of whatever over 2, 3, 4 years and stuff like that. And there are Empire leagues that are dedicated to that, where the league will actually end if one team manages to go back to back and repeat. But you could just do it if you don't obviously want to do that. You could add like an Empire pot. Everybody puts in an additional 10 or 15 bucks, and if it rolls over year over year over year until a team wins back to back, or whatever your rules are for that. So you could absolutely have that and implement that now in your dynasty leagues, which would be really, really cool. Another one is just having more payouts in general, right? If you raise your payout a little bit more, or raise your buy-in a little bit more, then you can pay out more in terms of weekly stuff. I know I've been in leagues where they pay out every single winner of every week got $5, and you down the line, this was a really big buy-in obviously, but down the line, if you went a perfect 13-0 in season, you got 13 weeks times $5, whatever that is, and then that's what you got paid out. And then you also got to pay out for being a divisional winner. You got to pay out for every single week that you won in the playoffs. Obviously, you got to pay out for winning, for second, for third place. You got to pay out for most points throughout the entire season. You got to pay out for having the best record throughout the entire season. Like, that just all adds additional really cool, fun things that actually add monetary value to your dynasty league that you could do. So if your league's about that life and wants to up your ante in terms of buy-in, if you have managers that can be able to do that and afford that, not everybody can do that. So please be mindful of everybody's situations in your dynasty league. But if you have a league that does that, definitely look to move away from, if you have a $500 payout to the first place winner, maybe drop that down to $400 or $350, and then pay out more incrementally, because more often than not, if a team is winning the actual league, they're also winning more of those in-season payouts as well, and they're just accumulating down the road as the actual season goes on. So they actually get probably roughly more, or at least the same as what they would have gotten with their actual first place payout. They're just accumulating more and more over the entire season. Or sometimes that doesn't actually happen, and a team that goes 13-0 loses in the first round of the playoffs after the bye week, and they're screwed, and they just get paid what they did for going 13-0. So additional flair, right? More fun to your dynasty leagues. So the next one here is public counter offers for trades. This one is really, really interesting, and I've actually seen leagues that have done this. So what they do is, when two owners and two managers agree on a trade, right? Let's just say they agree on a trade for Joe Burrow for the 1.01 in the Superflex League right now. That trade, instead of going and being processed immediately, what happens is that trade gets posted to a message board or a group me or whatever, and they say, hey, these two teams have agreed to trade Joe Burrow for the 1.01. Would anybody like to match or beat that? So then now, you have some more league interaction going on, and another team jumps in and be like, oh, whoa, I didn't know that you were only going to, take the 1.01 for Joe Burrow. Like, I'd like to offer you Matt Stafford and Julio Jones and Cam Akers for the 1.01. There's that. And then you can have that. And it kind of becomes almost like an auction, where you're just like running up the table, or the value for one of the assets on either side. And that, could either screw the original trade, or, other people might not really care, but just adds, additional interaction into your league and stuff like that, and more fun. That could actually potentially lead to more value for your trades, right? If you're a manager, or you're in a league that kind of complains about trades and they're not really being fair, and if I would have known that you were only selling Julio for the 3.01, I would have offered you more. Well, now you have the chance to, right? Julio was accepted for the 3.01, beat that, right? So now you have everybody going and trying to beat the 3.01 to get Julio Jones. It just adds in a really, really cool additional flair to your dynasty league that could be really, really fun. The eighth one here, this is next to last one, so we're almost done, but the eighth one here is having waiver wire draft. So this was similar to that supplemental stuff that I was talking about for the rookie draft, but this one actually goes for the in-season stuff. So in-season waiver wire, I've seen ideas in leagues that actually go and they take right before the start of week 3, they will hold a waiver wire draft. So, and they order it based on who's in last place to who's in first place at that point in the season. And so then, they'll have a waiver wire draft. So 2 weeks into the season, like I said, we'll stay with the same. Christian McCaffrey tears his ACL in week 1. There's no waiver wires being run for week 1 or week 2. Week 3 now, that 1.01, the worst team in the league, now has the opportunity to draft Chuba Hubbard. And then you just go down the line like that for having waiver wires. And then you can have 2 or 3 waiver wire drafts throughout the remainder of the in season. Just kind of parse them out throughout the year. Maybe have one at the end of every month, at the end of September, October, and November, right before the playoffs. You could structure that however you want and make that as fun as you want to be able to do all that. But that could just be a really, really cool idea, that instead of having FAAB, you now have actual drafts, and then trade the draft spots, right? Add more tradable pieces and assets into your league, and you have a waiver wire draft with actual trade spots that you can trade for in your season, right? So that would be really, really cool and really, really fun to implement into your dynasty leagues right now. So then the final one, this 9th one, and this isn't really one that needs to be explained, but one I just wanted to throw in here and make sure that your dynasty league kind of functions this way, because if not, I would strongly recommend that you push for this rule to be implemented in your dynasty league right now. And that is giving your final playoff spot to the top scoring team of the non-playoff teams, right? So 1 through 5, or 1 through 3, or whatever, however you structure your playoffs, the first however many teams get in based on record, right? It's just straight record, how it always is. That last playoff spot is you look at all the teams that have not made the playoffs yet. They're not in that top 5 or whatever. So look at all those non-playoff teams, and whoever scored the most points throughout the entire season gets that last playoff spot. And it's a cool way to kind of mitigate a little bit of luck. If one team scored 2,400 points throughout their entire fantasy season, but they finished at 6-10 or something like that, that doesn't actually add up in math, but you get what I mean. Like, a team got really unlucky with some of those close matchups and stuff where they were the second highest scoring team and they lost to the highest scoring team. That happened a couple times. It mitigates some of that luck. And then, on the flip side, that team that might not actually deserve to get in, maybe that they're, 7-6 or something like that, but they were just squeaking by a lot of their victories. They won against a lot of teams who had bye weeks or maybe injured players. They got kind of lucky to get to those 7 wins. They don't deserve to be in the playoffs as much as maybe another team who's actually really, really good. They're just getting unlucky with their matchups. So I wanted to make sure that I included that as the final rule to make sure to implement into your dynasty leagues now. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do that. A lot of more dynasty leagues are moving towards that. If you're on MFL, that functionality is already on there. I believe Sleeper already has that. Most dynasty league platforms will have that as a actual, rule and setting that you can have for your league, and you're not just manually changing that as the commissioner. So highly recommend that you go for that rule in your dynasty league. If it's not already in there, go for it now. This is the time to go for it and make those kinds of changes to your dynasty league in the summer before the season actually starts in 2021 in August and September. So that's going to do it. Those were 9, a little bit more than 9, but 9 total ideas and implementations that you can add to your dynasty league to add flair and a little bit more stuff that doesn't necessarily overhaul how your league works, doesn't change really any player values, just add some additional cool little flavor things that you can add to your dynasty league to not make them so standard or rote and just making them just a normal dynasty league. Add a little bit more fun, add some manager interaction, add some extracurricular stuff to your dynasty league to make it more and more fun for everybody playing in it. So with that all being said, guys, thank you so much for watching, for tuning in. We'll get back to more player analysis and dynasty analysis throughout the rest of the week and throughout the rest of the summer. But I wanted to include this because I thought it would just be a really, really fun and cool video to talk about and work through some of these cool ideas to add some flavor to your dynasty league. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later.